Welcome back to the overview of my financial literacy series titled What You Don't Know Will Hurt You, which identifies extremely important financial issues that most people aren't aware of. My name is Brent Kempton, and the next installment in this series is The Financial Matrix, which is a movie reference to a financial system that has been developed in the real world to keep you in financial bondage, paying interest to lenders. Just because it sounds like a conspiracy theory doesn't mean that it isn't true. I told you in the introduction that I worked in the financial industry for over a decade, and the longer I was there, the more evidence I saw to support this idea. This diagram is part of the evidence and comes to us from the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics and is dated 2018. What it shows is the financial path that most people follow throughout their years of employment. They start out early in their career receiving frequent raises as they establish their value to the company, but someplace along the line, those raises are replaced by annual cost of living increments, which means that their salary has basically flatlined. And then they decide or are forced into retirement where they are paid 1/3 to 1/2 of their previous income. During these accumulation years, we are encouraged by outside sources to spend instead of saving. Those of us who don't have financial literacy find ourselves deep in debt for cars, houses, and more. We then compound that error by not spending on real investments that could change our lives, mainly not investing in ourselves. If we do try to start investing, we do it with very little, if any, financial understanding, literacy, and we end up wasting even more money. What we also are unaware of is that there is a concerted effort to get us to borrow so we can have what we want today instead of waiting until we can afford it. Those of us who haven't become financially literate believe that our only problem is not having enough time or money to live the good life. The truth is that we lack even a fundamental understanding of finances and money, so we make uneducated guesses. The fault is not all ours because for some reason our educational system doesn't teach real financial literacy in the public schools or colleges, even though most people regret not having been taught more about money. A friend of mine eventually woke up to the fact that he learned no real financial basics as he was being trained to be a CPA. For those of us that have become financially literate, that knowledge has truly liberated us. In an earlier life, I was an algebra teacher, so it was just a matter of time before you got some kind of a graph. The purpose of this graph is to demonstrate the need for literacy. On the left, you see financial literacy. The top half of the graph is for those who have it, and the bottom is for those who don't. Across the top is cash flow, the money coming into your household. Limited is not based on how much one gets paid, but means that it is limited like a salary or hourly wage is. While one might be able to work overtime, earn bonuses, or win a league championship, there is still an income limit imposed upon them by someone else. They are bucket carriers. Unlimited means that your income is under your control, like business owners and investors who are only limited by their effort and skill. Their income will be residual, meaning that it keeps on coming even when they are asleep. Let's start by looking at someone who has a limited income and no financial literacy. These people inevitably end up living paycheck to paycheck because they don't know how to handle their money, even when they have large incomes. This quadrant represents 70% of the population. The good news is that all you have to do to quit being a 78%er, I said 75 below, it's before it's 78%, quit being a 78%er is to become financially literate. Next, let's look at those who have an unlimited income but no literacy. This group tends to be either doing really well with a lavish lifestyle or crashing because they didn't know how to leverage their money. They spent when they should have been saving, and a bump in their income brought them crashing down. while technically not unlimited. A good example of this phenomena is NFL players. The average starting salary in the NFL is $1 million, and the average tenure of a player is 5 years. Despite making $5 million in 5 years, the average player is either bankrupt or in serious financial trouble within 5 years of retirement because they didn't know how to save instead of spending lavishly. Lottery winners follow the same pattern. Next, let's look at people that have a limited income but have literacy. These people tend to be financially secure because they know how to save and when to invest. Typically, they have little or no debt and have an emergency fund to take care of unexpected problems. However, despite being in pretty good shape, they are not completely safe from going over the falls. Next, let's look at those people that have both an unlimited income and literacy. These people are pretty well untouchable with a strong residual income, no debt, and the knowledge of how to manage their money. At what point will you be financially secure? Financial security happens when, barring some catastrophic event, you won't go over the falls in your lifetime. So how far upriver is that? You can figure that out by calculating your financial independence number. This number is based on how much money you feel that you could live comfortably off of for the rest of your life. This money can come from a number of sources. Financial independence happens when you have sufficient residual income that you don't need or don't have to work anymore. For the purpose of this discussion, we'll be talking specifically about building up a sufficient savings in banks, 401ks, etc. According to my CPA friends, you need to have 20 times more saved up than you plan to live off of. This amount gives you an 80% chance that you won't run out of money before you die. For example, a savings of $100,000 would allow you to live off of $5,000 per year. $250,000 in the bank is good for $12,500 per year. $500,000 is good for $25,000. $250,000 gets you up to $50,000 per year. $2 million lets you live on $100,000 per year with an 80% chance of dying with money still in the bank. I know that sounds a little grim, but you don't want to die broke. Here are some alarming statistics regarding retirees. They come from a 2019 article in the Wealthy Nickel. 2 out of every 10 people are headed into retirement without anything saved. About half of the retirees have something. Here are the amounts based on age. The best of them will have to burn through their money in a handful of years. And then what? More than half of them have no significant savings. 1 out of 5 households are woefully short of savings. 1 out of 100, only 1 out of 100 households have a decent looking retirement. Given these statistics we just looked at, I'd say there are a lot more people than this who should be very concerned about their retirement. I think more than half of the population will probably have to work until they die or physically can no longer work. After what we've seen, is it a surprise that so many have so little? The real question is why we are seeing these kinds of statistics. Is it because maybe nobody taught them? Why do you suppose these basic concepts are not being taught by the system? Do you suppose that there are people out there that are profiting on their financial ignorance? After all, nobody decided early on to struggle financially all their adult life. With those sobering questions, we complete this segment on the financial matrix. Our next session will be on inflation, which is one of the 3 pipes draining your dream tank, and which, other than ignorance, I consider to be the greatest threat to your overall financial well-being. Here's my contact information. You can stop the presentation if you need more time to write it down or to click on the QR code. And once again, thank you for listening.